B'Shem Hashem na'aseh v'natzliach, Shiur Torah, Bruchim Bayim. We are back here, Baruch Hashem, from Eretz HaKodesh, from Yerushalayim HaKadoshah. We're going to give you a shiur very relevant to the times of war that we're in right now, discussing two major topics, and BeEzrat HaShem, if we have the time and strength, Kadosh Baruch Hu will give us, we'll answer some questions. Tonight's shiur is going to be for the Refuah Shlema for Rabbanit Lavan Bat Sarah, Rabbi Efraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah Bat Anat, Avi Mori David ben Esriya, Imi Morati Doris Bat Jorah, and all of Am Yisrael and all the righteous Noahides that continue to support our organization, all the wonderful things that we're doing, Baruch Hashem. Just for those of you that want to help us with the current campaign that we have for the Jewish soldiers, there's going to be something very big, BeEzrat HaShem, that we're going to be doing over these next few days in preparation for Chanukah. Anyone that wants to be generous and be part of the chesed that we're doing with the Jewish soldiers here in Israel, and of course all the wonderful people around the world that have supported us are more than welcome to do it again. You could go to bhchesed.org. That's B as in BeEzrat, H as in Hashem, CHESED.org. You could donate over there, or you could donate on our regular website, BeEzratHashem.org, or you donate on YouTube, on Facebook, and many other places, Baruch Hashem. Anyone that wants to donate, there's no shortage of ways of doing it. So tonight's shiur, as I mentioned to you, is going to be two major topics that need to be discussed. Of course, we have Parashat Vayeitzei, which we already started discussing earlier this week. But there is we're going to delve into that a little bit, but really connected to two major things that people need to know about. One of them is the protests that took place, just a week ago or so in Washington by the Jewish people. Agudat Yisrael spearheaded it. And what is really the opinion of the Torah on this protest, where a few 100,000 Jewish people showed up to this protest? And the second thing, which is I think probably more interesting to many of you, is going to be, which we're going to spend most of this shiur on, is going to be the hostage deal that is being signed as we speak between Israel and the terrorist Hamas that have over 200 Jewish hostages being held by these terrorists. These poor Jews, some of them have actually died, after torture and horrible things that took place and are taking place. One woman is said that she actually gave birth while being a hostage. And the point is that there is a hostage deal supposed to take place where Hamas and their Palestinian supporters are looking for a ceasefire for several days. And in addition to that, they are willing to free 50 hostages in return for 150 terrorists that are actually imprisoned in Jewish prisons right now. So they're not asking for regular people. They're not asking for decent people. They're asking for people that are in jail because they're criminals. Some of them tried killing Jewish people with bombs, with knives, with guns, with a lot of different things. So we're not really freeing the best among them. So this is obviously a very big question. On one end, everyone that's normal and decent wants the Jewish hostages that are innocent and haven't done anything to these Palestinians. In fact, some of them are even supported the Palestinians before they became their hostages. Everyone wants them freed. Everyone wants them to come home. On the other hand, there is a danger here that you're freeing hostages, and one of the proofs of this danger is the fact that one of the hostages that was released in a previous deal between Israel and Hamas, when there was the Gilad Shalit was the prisoner, and Israel freed 1,000 Palestinian prisoners that were, again, all criminals. They weren't imprisoned for no reason. When they freed them, the world was happy, but what we got in return is that one of those people that was freed was part of this recent attack on October 7th. So we see here that if you release a prisoner that's a criminal, don't expect good news to come from that. On the other hand, what do we do with the Jewish people that are imprisoned? Does the Torah say to free them? Does the Torah say to keep them there, to let it all go? What do you do? Now, we've discussed very sensitive topics in the past, and we don't shy away from them. For example, the whole issue with the civilians being killed, including women and children, during war, despite the tragedy that everyone faces, there is a Torah perspective about that as well. Anyone that wants to see that, there's a whole YouTube video with, Baruch Hashem, many views that people have learned from. Of course, some people didn't like it, but that doesn't really make a difference to us, because we're not here to look for fans. We're not looking for likes. We're not looking for thumbs up. We're looking to bring you the Holy Torah at face value, and you make the decision for yourself, whether you're a Jew, Gentile, a friend, or an enemy. So now we have our weekly parasha, which of course everything always connects to the weekly parasha at all times and at all places, regardless of what the issue is. In this week's parasha, Parashat Vayeitzei, in the book of Genesis, Sefer Bereshit, we know the story of Yaakov working with Lavan is a story that literally you could give a million lectures over. The different lessons to be learned, whether it's how to thrive despite the world around you being cheaters and liars, how to know that the only success you're ever going to have is going to be from the hand of God and nothing else. Even if somebody wants to hurt you or help you, they don't have the ability to do either one unless Hashem decides that that's what He wants. But one of the things that we see that after Yaakov Avinu leaves, more like escapes the situation that he has with Lavan after being there for 2 decades, Yaakov Avinu sees that his success has made Lavan and his sons bitter. Even though they were obviously much more successful, they made a whole lot more money. If he's an employee and he's making a lot of money, then obviously the employer is making much more. But such is the way with people that are greedy. They don't count their own blessings; they count somebody else's. So Lavan and his sons had a lot of unhappiness and bitterness over Yaakov's success, and Yaakov then decided to leave. He told his wives that even though I didn't talk about it with you over the years, and you pretty much knew that your father's a cheater, I'm just confirming with you that your father is a cheater. Lavan is a cheater. He cheated me 100 times. Every arrangement that we agreed on, he would change it as soon as he didn't like it and it wasn't in his favor, or at least what he thought was his favor initially. Now, after Yaakov Avinu leaves, Lavan gets angry and chases him with an intention to kill him and everybody with him. This is why in the Agadah of Pesach we read that Lavan tried to destroy Am Yisrael. He didn't just try to destroy Yaakov; he tried to destroy all of Am Yisrael, and he gets punished for it until this day. Because unlike the Jews that only get punished for things they actually do, since the Gentiles have a less mitzvot to fulfill according to the Torah, less responsibility, they also get punished for evil things that they even think about doing. They want to do, but they don't do. I know that some of you are going to get very upset about that, and that's fine with me, because that's what Torah says. That's what Torah says. I didn't write the Torah. Hashem did not ask me for permission or whether I like or dislike something before He wrote it. This is what the reality is. Now, after Lavan chases down Yaakov, Lavan catches up to him and a deal is made where they both go their separate ways. But before that happens, HaKadosh Baruch Hu warns Lavan not to harm Yaakov, not to do anything. And Lavan continues and persists, and his claim against Yaakov is, why did he leave in such a way, and why did he steal his gods? Yaakov is dumbfounded. He says, what are you talking about, to steal your gods? Who would take your idols? I'm not an idol worshiper. But Lavan says, no, you stole my gods. Now, as a side note, the Torah tells us that actually Rachel, the daughter of Lavan and the wife of Yaakov, she actually did steal those idols from Lavan, because she didn't want her father to have, continue being an idol worshiper. She was doing it for his interest, and she was hiding it, but Yaakov did not know. And when Lavan accuses Yaakov that he stole it, Yaakov says to him, listen, let my integrity testify for me on a future day. When you enter, so he's letting Lavan know that in the past his integrity was shown. He was honest with him. He never took from him anything, and Lavan insists on checking anyway. And Yaakov says to him, "You can check whatever you want. If anybody stole your terafim, your idols, they'll die." And that's actually ended up being the cause of death for Rachel. But that was again not in front of Lavan. Later on the way when she gave birth to Benjamin. From there, the sages teach us that a person should always be careful with what he says. Sometimes people say things out of anger or being upset. They use cuss words, or they even curse their own kids, saying, I hope you die, or things like that. You should know that those words may not mean something to you, but in Shamayim it's very possible. There's an angel that takes your words and brings them up to the Beit Din of heaven and asks if he could fulfill them, whether that's a blessing or that's a curse. And don't put those things on the line if you don't mean them, because it could literally create tragedy that you can't take back. It was years ago, at the time of Rav Nisim again, there was a woman that made it a habit that she would yell at her kids and even say to them, I wish you die. And one time one of the kids caused some trouble, and she told him, I wish you died already. And the kid ran into the street, got hit by a bus right in front of her, and died. So you could just imagine the anguish that this woman had to live with, for the rest of her life. Point being is that a person needs to be careful with their words. But in this particular case, Yaakov did not actually think that anybody in his camp took the terafim, took the idols. So what's to be careful of? Either way, Yaakov is showing us a very, very important midah and very important mitzvah, which is Naki tiyeh b'nei Hashem u'b'nei Adam. You have to be clean in the eyes of man, in the eyes of God, and in the eyes of man. Now, of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows exactly what you did and what you didn't do, what you think, what you stole, what you wanted to do. Hashem already knows. So a person doesn't have to help Hashem know what's behind the scenes. But it's important for a person to know that even people need to know that you're clean. So if somebody, for example, accuses you of something that you did, you have to at times go out of your way to prove to them that you did it, to show them that your hands are clean, that you didn't steal, you didn't cheat, you didn't lie, you did what you promised. You have to be naki. This is the reason why Yaakov allows Lavan to search his entire camp without thinking twice. And this is also the reason of why we're going to address these topics, because as we see, when you bring people Torah sources, you're bringing them the clarity that they need to know where you stand, to know if you're following the Torah or if you're not following the Torah. And the first thing we're going to answer briefly, at least in comparison to the hostages part, is the opinion about the protests. The protests that took place. Now, obviously, as I told you guys at the beginning of this war, When people thought, that it's better to run out of Israel, we were here from the beginning and even before it, Baruch Hashem, and still here today. I didn't move here, not yet at least, but we're here to support the people, to do shiurim, to do chesed, to do a lot of wonderful things that we've been able to do over the last couple of months. But when people found out that I was here, I got a bunch of different messages and calls from different people. Get out while you can. You have to come back. It's much safer. And obviously, I was very vocal about the fact that there is no place on earth that is safe for the Jewish people like Israel right now. No place on earth. Now, initially, people thought that's just emunah. But within a short period of time, they saw that that's not just emunah, it's a fact. When all the protests by the anti-Semites around the world, especially in allies countries like America and and around Europe, the protest against the Jewish people started, and some of them got violent. All of them were horrific, literally preaching for the destruction of Israel and the Jewish people with all types of chants. More people, literally millions of people, are still protesting against Israel right now in America, in college campuses. And as I said last week, college campus right now is more dangerous for Jewish people than Gaza is. And it's not an exaggeration. Unfortunately, there are still some people that we know that are choosing to be oblivious to this danger and continuing to attend college, continuing to go to the campuses, and continuing to put themselves at risk. But people that choose to be blind, you can't really help them. It's but we're a different part of the camp where we're stay on, minding our business. Everybody minds their business. That doesn't make a difference. If somebody hates you, they're going to watch you and interrupt you minding your own business. Either way, the amount of protests that are around the world right now against the Jewish people is higher than we've seen since the Holocaust. And of course, the Jewish people are also having some protests, pro-Israel protests, and the climax of these was just a week ago, where is estimated that 300,000 Jews, and I assume also some Christians, came to Washington, D.C. for the protests. And as I've told you guys in the past, protests in general are foolish. Even though you have the right to protest, and some people look for that right and take advantage of that right, generally speaking, I don't see very much happening from protests, other than more agony, other than more turmoil, other than more violence, even if that's not the original intention. And even more so, it's a big waste of time where people are thinking that they could take matters into their own hands by influencing the government, intimidating the government, and that's the last thing that the Jewish people should do. If you want to influence the government, if you want to, do things that are going to inspire people to do the right thing, the most successful way that the Jewish people have had throughout history has been behind the scenes. Behind the scenes. Being in the front lines, being in the front scenes, being the topic of discussion in the news has never worked out so well for the Jewish people. Because the minute things do not go as planned, the minute things go the opposite of what the world had as a plan, the first people that they blame are the Jews that are the center of attention. So generally speaking, protests have never really been a good thing altogether for the Jewish people. But this particular protest in general that took place last week, we already said that I think it's a foolish thing for the Jewish people to cause so much noise. The amount of anti-Semitism that it's in America right now is at all-time highs. For us to get even more, to bring more attention to ourselves, to our communities, is not necessarily going to work in our favor. I'm not telling people to be silent. Certainly you can express your opinion, whether it be on the media that's out there and writings and so on. But generally speaking, these things never really worked out for us very well. But some smart people decided that it's a good idea to do this protest. And the protest took place, and the reality is, according to Da'at Torah, the people that went to that protest did not make the right decision. How do I know that? Because one of the Gdolim, and according to many, the Gdol Ador of America, Rav Aharon Feldman, wrote a letter. And his letter, which was publicized in Yeshiva World and other places, he himself clarifies that initially he was asked about joining this protest, and because there was issues of hostages and pikuach nefesh, meaning life risk, he decided that it's okay to join this protest as long as they meet the condition that they're not going to desecrate the Torah like they do usually with these protests, and they're not going to preach the things that are antithetical to the Torah, but rather they're going to give the respect to the Jewish people, which are actually practicing Judaism, and not just the Zionist mentalities and ideologies. But then Rav Aharon Feldman writes in the letter that although he already knew about the protest for some time before the actual protest itself took place, and the agreement was that they were going to let him know and have him involved in everything that was planned for the protest, he was not made aware of any of it. And they actually waited until the last minute to let him know who is actually going to be speaking and representing the Jewish people there. And in that last moment, Rav Aharon Feldman decided to step back away and not be involved in this protest. And unfortunately, because it was last minute, which seems honestly intentionally, that they didn't let him know, he decided to issue this letter. And what does this letter say? The letter says that although he originally supported this rally, he decided to step away from it because this rally had things happen in it that are against the Torah to such an extent that even life risk does not override them. Generally speaking, when there is life risk, there is the Torah is put aside, with the exception of three things. There are three exceptions to this, which is one, idolatry. If somebody tells you either worship an idol or we will kill you, you have to die and not worship the idol. Two, if it's murder, meaning somebody tells you either kill somebody or we'll kill you, you cannot kill somebody else to save your life, unless that person himself is coming to kill you, like the terrorists and so on. Three is to have immoral act, meaning they tell you either commit adultery or some act of promiscuity with this woman, or we will kill you. You are not allowed to do that. You have to die and not do it. So these are three cardinal sins. And this so-called rally cannot really be called a Jewish rally. As Rav Aharon Feldman himself says, the reason why he backed off is because what he wasn't told in the beginning was that a Christian pastor, a famous Christian pastor that has 10 million supporters, was going to address the crowd. And this Christian pastor is a evangelical Christian, which is the main sect of Christianity that targets Jews to convert to Christianity. Although they send a lot of money to Israel, it's, as I've told you many times in the past, it's not because of their kindness, but rather because of their mission. They are willing to invest hundreds of millions of dollars to show people in Israel and around the world, the Jewish people around the world, that they are friendly, just in order for those people to open their doors for them so they could actually missionize to them. And what Aharon Feldman says, and I'll read you exactly what he said, a Christian pastor was set to address the crowd. He is the head of an evangelical Christian denomination which believes that Jews need to be supported so that they eventually convert to Christianity. Even though this pastor has shown enormous support for Israel in the past, and even though he has 10 million supporters, nevertheless our community cannot have such a person as its spokesperson. Therefore, no matter how much I appreciated this pastor's efforts on behalf of Jews, I could not support having him speak at the rally. First, I could not know what he planned to say. Second, even if his speech was harmless. Having a Christian leader speak to the Jewish audience is a step towards interfaith acceptance, and many people, especially young people in the audience, could well conclude, he says all the right things. What's wrong, after all, with being a Christian? And pikuach nefesh, life risk, is not an excuse for honoring a foreign religion. In so many words, inviting a Christian to speak at a Jewish event is no different than going to a church and worshiping an idol. It's considered idolatry, considered being an assistant to idolatry, which is the same exact thing that we told you about and warned the communities around the world, especially here in Florida, when we're in Florida, in Boca Raton, when the Apikos, Efraim Goldberg, who is the chief rabbi of the Boca Raton synagogue, and his fellow rabbis, he's also the Dayan in Florida, the head Dayan in Florida, some say, and also a part of the Kashrut of Rabbi, part of the OU, when he brought Christian missionaries to his synagogue, and we called it out and did everything possible to stop it, although HaKadosh Baruch Hu helped us with the first time when he wanted to bring Matthew Kelly to the Boca Raton synagogue, and eventually this was canceled after all the noise we made. Unfortunately, we did not succeed the second time we tried when he brought Mario Bramnik, the missionary who has been more open about his missionizing ambitions than even Matthew Kelly. And he brought him to the synagogue, and hundreds and hundreds of people in the community watched him dance in front of the Aron HaKodesh. And obviously when we spoke about it, and we made many different videos about it, some of you, obviously most of you, knew that this was the right thing. We brought Torah sources. We told you that it's forbidden to do such a thing. It's against the Torah. It's even areg ve'al yavor, die but not sin. But some unfortunately thought that we're being fanatic. Now you have Rav Aharon Feldman, Sheikh, the Gdol Ador in America, and one of the biggest rabbis in the world, telling you that to have a Christian pastor be a spokesman in a Jewish event is forbidden to the extent where it does not allow a person, a Jew, to be involved in, even if there is life risk. Meaning, even if this means that the hostages will die as a result of your non-involvement in this protest, it's better that they die than you, a Jew, be involved in such a protest. Needless to say, it's, the things that are happening at the Boca Raton synagogue, and now in other synagogues in Florida, in Canada, in New York, that are also now bringing Christian pastors and priests and all types of idol worshippers to their synagogues. This is not Judaism. This is not Judaism. This is forbidden, and it's not just me anymore saying it. And in fact, one of the things that I've told you in the past is that when I made the phone calls to different rabbis during the first time when they tried to bring Matthew Kelly, the Christian Catholic pastor that has a primary mission of missionizing, and we called all the rabbis. We got signatures by Rav Kamenetsky, who signed against Efraim Goldberg, but we also spoke to other rabbis, the Rishon LeZion and other great rabbis, and one of those rabbis that we spoke to was actually Rav Aharon Feldman. And Rav Aharon Feldman told me personally, everything that you're saying is right. They're forbidden from bringing him. It's a tragedy that they want to bring him. It's horrible. He said, there's only one thing that you're doing wrong. I said, what's wrong? He said, you think that these modern Orthodox rabbis are practicing the same religion as us. That's the mistake. And I knew exactly what he's talking about, how they modernize the Torah so much that it's literally almost like a different religion. But I still spoke to him and I told him, still, even though you're right, most people around the world that are practicing modern orthodoxy, or even simply are familiar with it, even if they are Haredim themselves, they don't think it that way. They don't see it that way. They think that it's the same thing. It's orthodoxy. Since it has the word orthodoxy in it, it's the same thing. It's just a little bit more modern to the times. But this is a reality of what took place some 7-8 years ago. And as a Kadosh Baruch Hu would want it, the letter came out anyway. The letter that we were trying to go against Efraim Goldberg came out anyway, here and now, against this protest in a much, much more vocal and clear way, where Rav Aharon Feldman made it clear to any Jew out there that if your synagogue, your community, your friends, or whoever are bringing Christian priests, pastors, and all types of other missionaries to the Jewish community to speak, this is against the Torah. Anyone that wants to know more sources about it can watch my lectures on my YouTube channel. Can You Learn from a Christian Pastor is one of the famous lectures that many people watch, which took place at that time when we were going against Efraim Goldberg. The point being here is that now you have a clear Da'at Torah from Rabbi Aharon Feldman. It's no longer me. It never was me. I brought you the Rambam. I brought you the Shulchan Aruch. I brought you the Gemara. I brought you all the sources. But for all of those people that thought that maybe I'm changing the sources or manipulating anything, and maybe I'm a Dat Yachid, I'm the only individual that's saying it, now you have the biggest rabbi in America today saying the same exact thing we've been telling you for the last almost decade. That it's literally so bad to bring a Christian to speak up at a Jewish event, that even if that, if canceling it would mean that Jewish people would die because they're hostages, so be it. We want the hostages to live. We want the hostages to be freed. But if it's at the price of giving the stage to an idol worshiper, this is an absolute no-no. Furthermore, the second reason why Rav Aharon Feldman said that he had to step away from this whole thing is because the Aguda did not honor their deal of preaching the fact that we're Jewish people and it's all celebrating the Jewish faith and Hashem. Instead, he says, it became clear from the program that the rally was going to be a celebration of secular Zionism. Secular Zionism is a rejection of the Jewish faith. These are the words of Rav Aharon Feldman, and you can read this online, it's publicly available. Secular Zionism is a rejection of the Jewish faith. It supplants God and Torah as the basis for the Jewish people, for which it substitutes a common land and language. There could be no greater evidence of this than the anthem of Hatikva, which states that the hope of the Jews for 2 millennia has been to be a free nation in our land, not a nation of God and Torah. This anthem was scheduled to begin the program. The dominant presence of the president and ambassador of the state of Israel and the speeches they would perforce deliver supporting a secular state meant that the thousands present would be inspired to honor an ideology which is the antithesis of Judaism. Pikuach Nefesh does not override supporting the rejection of Judaism. Torah Jews recognize the need for a government in Israel and of course will do nothing to dismantle it or to expose it to danger, but they cannot recognize its ideology as legitimately Jewish. So here we see Rav Aharon Feldman telling us that he himself is telling you that being part of any of these protests that are pro-Zionist and are involving all types of idolatry and heresy in them are forbidden according to the Torah. If you do not agree with Rav Aharon Feldman, that means you do not agree with the Torah. That means you don't agree with the Torah. You agree with your opinion, and your opinion was not written in the Torah. So with that being said, this is the issue here with all of these. And by the way, just as a side note, of course, the one of the biggest promoters of this protest, this rally, this Zionist rally, this anti-God rally, at least in Florida, if not around the country, was Efraim Goldberg again. Efraim Goldberg and all of his people from Boca Raton Synagogue and his community and his rabbis. Of course, they joined the rally. They're proud that they joined the rally. They think that they're doing the Jewish people a kindness by doing that. And he even elevated his heresy by saying that, he's quoted as saying, some people say that there are some Jewish soldiers that are secular. He said there's no such thing as a secular Jewish soldier. That's an oxymoron, he says. If you are a soldier fighting for Israel, you are holy, holy. Meaning that all of the soldiers that are desecrating Shabbat, pogem brit, married to non-Jews, careless about the Torah, they don't have to do tshuva. Why? Because they're shooting guns, and therefore it's okay. That makes them holy. Now, of course, we have a lot of appreciation to the soldiers. We are doing everything we possibly can to help the soldiers, but to go from helping the soldiers and supporting the soldiers and being grateful to what the soldiers are doing to actually saying that they are holy and, in so many words, considered religious, that's just outright lies. It's desecration of the Torah. It's stupidity. And unfortunately, it is enabling people to think that that opinion is okay. Meaning that if you don't keep any of the Torah, you don't observe any of the Torah, in fact, you are an atheist or an idol worshiper or whatever you are, but you are a supporter of the IDF, that makes you holy. This is not true. This is not God's opinion. This is not any normal rabbi's opinion. This is not any normal Torah scholar's opinion. This is not anybody's opinion other than heretics. Only heretics have such an opinion. And even if those heretics call themselves rabbis, they're still heretics. Because the opinion of the Torah is not that. The opinion of the Torah is that we have HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the Torah, He gave us the mitzvot. If we follow them, that means that we are Torah observant, that means that we are righteous. If we don't follow them, that means that we are wicked. Very simple. If you observe Shabbat, you're a Torah observant Jew. If you don't observe Shabbat, that means you desecrate Shabbat, and you get punished for it by losing your olam haba. Simple. It's not rocket science. There's parts of the Torah that are black and white. You observe the Torah, you'll get blessed. You desecrate the Torah, you'll get cursed. Very simple. Anyone that says otherwise is just simply adding their own opinions and emotions into the mix. And by doing that, they're actually enabling people to stay the same and not change and not do tshuva. And that's actually the disaster of all disasters, as the Chazon Ish says. A person that does not have emunah usually does not have many followers. But a person that has fake emunah, he is much more dangerous because he's presenting himself as if he believes in God. He's presenting himself as if he follows God. But in reality, he does not. And he's dangerous because he gets people to follow him with his fake ideology, with his heretical ideology. And therefore, he's a enemy of the Torah. He's an enemy of God. So, with that being said, this is the Torah opinion about the protest. Furthermore, we're going to go into the next thing, which is the deal that we have right now on the table, where there's obviously over a couple of hundred Jewish hostages in enemy hands. Every one of us wants them to come home yesterday already. It's a tragedy unlike anything else we've seen since the Holocaust. And the problem is that these terrorists, Hamas and their supporters, know how much we value Jewish lives. And they obviously have taken advantage of that in the past. And they're doing it again. They're saying, listen, we want you to stop firing, which would allow Hamas to recuperate, put the ammunition back in, to regroup and try to cause more lives of the Jewish people to end. But, needless to say, their deal is that they want a ceasefire for, I believe it's 4 days, and in return, they're going to give 50 hostages, but the hostages are not just coming for the 4 days of ceasefire. They want 3 Palestinian prisoners to be freed. Now, these prisoners were not put into jail for no reason. For the most part, they're all terrorists. That's why they're in prison. They're not in prison because they stole some money from an ATM machine. They're not in prison because they forgot to pay the government taxes. They're not in prison for that. They're not in prison for white-collar crimes. These are all criminals. Some worse than others. Supposedly, none of them are actually killed people. That's at least what people are saying. But nonetheless, there's a whole list of them. And they want 150 terrorists to be freed from Jewish prisons in return for the 50 Jews. Are we allowed to do such a thing? They're doing it because the Israeli government has a Zionist heretical mentality. They don't follow the Torah. At least the previous generation, even though they were also Zionist, at least they tried to follow the Torah to a certain extent, which you'll hear about today. But nonetheless, they are not looking for any, they don't care about what the Torah says. They're doing it. Do they have the permission? Now, on the grand surface of things, what are the problem with doing this? Obvious problems are that these are terrorists that you're freeing. If they're terrorists, that means that you're freeing them and they can go back to being terrorists. And in fact, that's what they're all saying. They're not saying that, oh, listen, we made a mistake. We are doing tshuva now. We're repenting. We're not going to be terrorists. We're going to be good boys now. We're not going to try to kill you anymore. We're not going to rape your women anymore. We're not going to, behead your children anymore. We're going to be good civilians. No. We're going to continue. They're saying they're going to continue being terrorists. They're going to continue doing whatever it is that they do with the ideology that Israel is the enemy, and until it's annihilated from the world, they're not going to stop. So you don't have any hope from either Hamas or the terrorists that they want to be freed, and they want specific ones. Most likely the worst ones, the most dangerous ones. So obviously this creates a new danger. With these terrorists being off the street, it's better for the Jewish people. Putting them back on the street is dangerous for the Jewish people. But at the same token, you want to get these Jewish people out of being hostages. What do? The other thing, as you'll see the Gemara mentions, is that if you pay such a high price to free your prisoners from enemy hands, that could actually create a enticement for the enemy to do it again. Because if they say, let's say for example, they kidnap somebody that's a son of a rich man, and tell him, listen, give us $100 million and we'll free your son. If they actually free that son, if the guy gives him $100 million, that could encourage these terrorists to do it again. With somebody else, with the same kid again. So obviously this creates a new danger. Now, if you thought that this is just coming from my mind, you're mistaken. This is all in Torah. Torah that was given to us 3,334 years ago. And of course we have both the Rin Torah and the Oral Torah that discusses this. Now the Mitzvah of Pidyon Shvuyim, which is to free hostages, Jewish people that were taken as captive, is a very big mitzvah. But, as you'll see, it's not an any price. As the Mishnah in Masechet Gitin, page 45a, and also in Masechet Ketubot, page 52b, says, En podin et hashvuyim, yeter al kedei demen, mipnei tikun olam, ve'en mavrichin et hashvuyim, mipnei tikun haolam. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel omer, mipnei takanat hashvuyim. The Mishnah says, the hostages, the captives, are not to be redeemed for more than their actual monetary value. You're not allowed to give the terrorist $100 million to free your son. Not allowed. Why? For the betterment of the world. Meaning, if you don't free him and you don't pay this $100 million, it'll actually be better for the world if you don't do it. And one may not even aid the captive in their attempt to escape from their captors for the betterment of the world. Why is this the betterment of the world? If, let's say, you're in a prison and there's 10 people and one guy is trying to break free, the Mishnah here says you're not allowed to help him. Not allowed to help him break free. Why? Because it will be better for the world if you don't help him. How could this be better for the world? We're going to get to that. Because if you help him, the kidnappers will actually be more restrictive on the other prisoners that are left. And the Tosfot over there says they could actually even kill the other prisoners or torture them by tying them up in chains and tormenting them and making their lives much more miserable. So by not helping this other captor escape, it's better for the world so that the kidnappers will not be more restrictive with the remaining captives to prevent them from escaping. And Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says this is not helping the guy escape, is the betterment of the captors themselves. Why? So that the kidnappers will not avenge the escape of the captive that escaped by treating the other captors with cruelty. Now, as my own dear Rav Efraim, which I learned this with, our Gaon, Dayan, Posek, Rav Efraim Kachlon, he says if you pay too high a ransom for freeing hostages, it'll lead the kidnappers to kidnap more people in order to make money. And therefore, not freeing the captives with a high ransom is considered tikkun olam, betterment of the world. So at first face value, we see that this hostage deal looks like a problem. Looks like a very big problem, because if you pay a high price to free a hostage, that could actually encourage the kidnappers to do it again. And if you really are looking for the betterment of the world, you want to help them. So far, you got it. Okay, now. This is not the final opinion, obviously. We're working on it. The Shulchan Aruch in Yoreh De'ah, in Siman 252, Halacha number 4. Paskins la'alacha. We don't redeem the hostages for more than their monetary value, due to the betterment of the world. The tikkun olam, same thing as the Gemara says, meaning what the Gemara already said. This is what's paskin la'alacha. How is this tikkun olam? So that the enemy doesn't get a desire to do more harm in order to increase the profit. So here, up to now, we have ourselves a very, very serious problem. Why? We're seeing that according to the basic opinion, this is too high of a price. You're going to free 150 terrorists to get back 50 Jewish people back? Looks like it's against the Torah. But that's why you have to learn Torah in order to know what Torah says. The Shach of Shabtai Katz lived about 350 years ago. He says that what the Shulchan Aruch is referring to, as far as don't redeem the hostages for more than their monetary value, being the betterment of the world, is referring to as long as there is no risk that the kidnappers will do it again. And furthermore, the Meiri says on the Gemara in Masechet Gitin that this is all as long as it's only money that the kidnappers are looking for, and the lives of the captives are not endangered. Meaning that some people, they kidnap somebody, they don't have an intention of actually killing him. They just want money. If that's the case, you're not allowed to pay that money if it's too high of a price. That's more than the value of that person. Not allowed. But if their life is at risk, then something changes here. Why? The value of a Jew is infinite. There's no end to the price. So what do we do now? Who else other than Morenu v'Rabbeinu, the Gaon Adorot, Rav Ovadia Yosef, Alav Shalom, can deal with such a monumental issue? Rav Ovadia Yosef and Yabia Omer, in the 10th Chelek, in Choshen Mishpat, section 6, has a tshuva that is literally a genius of all geniuses, something unbelievable that anyone that actually reads the tshuva not only will become a chassid of Rav Ovadia and everything he ever said, but on top of it will also know that calling him a genius is an understatement. Calling him a Gdol Ador is an understatement. As he addresses and brings all of these in this huge tshuva, this tshuva, we put it on Microsoft Word just to be able to count the words and have it in a certain format. We can highlight certain things. And this tshuva, Rabotai Yekarim, is over 17,000 words. The question was the question of what we're asking. If there are terrorists that took Jewish hostages, do we redeem them by giving them a high price or not? He wrote a tshuva, over 17,000 words, 22 pages for a single answer, for a single question. When was this asked? This was asked years ago when the same terrorist Palestinians hijacked a plane with over 100 Jewish people on that plane. They hijacked the plane and they rerouted the plane to go and went to Uganda. Certainly you could read about this and what happened and transpired online. Now, they came to the Israeli government saying that they have 100 hostages and they want to free Palestinian terrorist prisoners, and or else they're going to kill the people. Now, the government at that time, even though it was still Zionist, had some respect for the Torah, much more than today. And they knew that although theoretically everybody wants to free the Jewish prisoners, this is a very big dilemma for the reasons that we've mentioned. It could entice other people to do the same thing. It could entice the same people to do the same thing. It can entice the prisoners that are being freed to do the same thing. It, in essence, increases the danger. But at the same token, everybody wants the Jewish prisoners to come back home. So they knew that they need something to rely on. They needed big shoulders to rely on. They came to Rav Ovadia Yosef, the Gdol Ador, and they said, we need you to paskin for us. And of course, you don't paskin off your sleeve. You have to study the issue. You have to address it. And every possible issue that has to do with it. Now, we're not going to go over all 22 pages. I wish we could. But we're going to go over some of the highlights. Rav Ovadia brings in, and he says that there was a plane that was hijacked with 100 Jewish people. It was now in Uganda. And freeing them would require us to give prisoners that are terrorists, and which will obviously create a greater danger, either from the free terrorists. The free terrorists are going to do it again, what they already did and were convicted of in the past, or repeat terrorism from the people that are getting a benefit from it right now because they see that this is working. This is working, this is profitable, they'll do it again. How do you deal with this? So he starts off by bringing the Gemara in Yerushalmi, which some people looked at and said that, look, in there's an example where the enemies of Israel come to the Jewish community and say, give us this one person that we could kill him, or else we're going to kill everybody. And the Gemara says, if they're asking for an innocent person, one of the Jewish people in the community that's Torah observant, and they're asking to kill him, let's say for whatever reason they have, in those days, if somebody would teach Torah, they want to kill him, or if somebody stole, they want to kill him. They want to kill a Jew for no reason, for whatever reason. But they're threatening you that either you give us this one Jew, or we're going to kill everybody. What does the Torah say? To give this one person in order to relieve everybody else from the risk of being killed in a pogrom is forbidden. Meaning, let everybody die, and you do not give one Jewish person in the hands of the enemy. Exception, if this person is a heretic, an idolater, then you can give him up in order to save the people. So that was one of the premises that some people thought that it's not possible to ever give up prisoners that are terrorists in order to save the Jewish people that are captives, that were kidnapped. Like, look, over here it says that if the people are innocent and they're going to be at risk, because of you can't do it. And the other reason was the first one that we mentioned, that it's too high of a price. So Rav Ovadia, alav shalom, addresses this and every other possible question or concern that someone would have. And he says as follows: giving one innocent Jew to save the community, giving up one innocent Jew to the enemy, so the enemy would kill him, in order to save the others, is a vicious spilling of innocent blood, just to save yourself. But to give up terrorist prisoners in order to free a Jewish captive is not the same as what the Tosefta and the Yerushalmi over here brought as an example. Because freeing the terrorist prisoners is only a possible danger, a safek sakana. It's a possible danger, because there's no guarantee that this prisoner, that's a terrorist, that was arrested and now being released, there's no guarantee that he will go back and be a terrorist again. And there's also no guarantee that he will succeed in murdering another Jew once he's freed. So it's not the same thing. Meaning to give up a Jewish person and that for sure you're going to have him killed in order to save yourself or save the whole community, that's absolutely forbidden. That's what the Gemara says. But to free a terrorist in order to save a Jew, that is okay, because there's no certainty that freed prisoner will actually continue being a terrorist. Maybe he'll repent, maybe he'll fail, maybe he'll die in some other way. There's a million other ways, meaning it's only a possible risk, it's not a certain risk. Whereas if you give up the Jewish person to die in order to save the community, that's a certain risk. That's that's outright murder. Furthermore, if you ask, is a Jew allowed to put himself in a possible risk, safek sakana it's called, in order to save a Jew that's in a certain sakana? Are you allowed to put yourself at risk, that's possible danger of you dying, in order to save a Jew that is in a definitive state that if you don't save him, he's going to die? Now there is a Radbaz that says, no, now I'll take a risk in order to save somebody that's going to die without you. But Rav Ovadia addresses that he brings the Agaot HaMaimonit, which is the teachings of the Rambam, based on the teachings of the Rambam, who says, no, in fact, to go and put yourself in a possible danger in order to save a Jew that's in a certain danger is an obligation. You're obligated to put yourself in a possible danger in order to save a Jew that's in a certain danger. So here we see that if you free the terrorists from the Jewish prisons, that creates a possible danger, not a certain danger. As we said, they could fail, they could die in different ways, they could repent, they could do a lot of things. It's not definite that they're going to go kill again, even though it's very likely they'll be terrorists again, as we saw from the current event that's at hand, where one of the people that was freed, one of the terrorists that was freed in the Gilad Shalit deal, ended up being involved in this whole event, this whole massacre that took place just a little over a month ago. But that's one guy out of 1,000. 1,000 people were released. He's the one guy that we know for sure was involved in this current massacre. It's still considered, even if it's a high likelihood, it's still a likelihood, but not a certainty. So the Agot HaMaimonit says that since it's only a possibility, therefore it's allowed. What about the fact that freeing these prisoners will create dangers in the future? Now you have an extra 150 terrorists in the street that could possibly create more danger. Ovadia addresses this also. Our Torah doesn't rule based on potential future dangers, only on current danger at hand. You can't paskin based on the possibilities of what could be in the future. You could only paskin based on the current reality of today. Furthermore, what about the Gemara in Masechet Gitin that we started off this whole sugya with in page 45a, where it says the price of a ransom that's too high cannot be paid in order to free a prisoner? Isn't this too high of a price? I mean, it's you're freeing 150 terrorists in order to get 50 of your own people back. Isn't that too high of a price? So Ovadia says this Gemara, just as the Meiri said, as I mentioned before, this Gemara is referring strictly to money exchange. Monetary exchange that's being too high when life is not in danger. But when life is in danger, then there's no such limit. There's no limit on pikuach nefesh. Meaning, if the Jewish prisoners were, they were being held by people that just wanted money. They want $100 million. But if they don't get the $100 million, they're simply going to stay prisoners. They're simply going to stay prisoners that in the eyes of the captors are worth $100 million. Most likely, they'll protect these prisoners. They're not going to kill them. They're not going to... Why? Because they want the money. If they don't have the prisoner, they don't have any potential of getting the money anymore. He says, in such a case, we cannot pay the money. Why? Because it would create endangerment for other people, where they would also start kidnapping people for money. And as part of the tikkun olam, of the betterment of the world, is not to pay that money. But when the kidnappers are terrorists that are saying they're going to kill the prisoners unless you pay them, then there is no price that is too high. Because the price of a Jew is priceless. And therefore, Rav Ovadia says in regards to that particular Mishnah in Gemara, that's only when the life is not in danger. That's only when life is not in danger. Now, of course, there are other parts of the tshuva that you could all go and read if you know how to read Hebrew and you're a Torah scholar to understand all the details. and nuances that he brings in there. But in so many words, what Ovadia clarifies for us today is something priceless. That although the price of a Jewish life is priceless, there's conditions for it to be priceless. It depends who the captors are. The fact that we know that Hamas are terrorists and they have no qualms about murdering women or children or anybody else, including their own people, obviously every Jewish prisoner that's there is at life risk every moment. Furthermore, there is no question that you can come up with that has not already been addressed in the Torah by our giant Torah sages. And this is one of the reasons why when people criticize the Torah, that is the first indication that they are ignorant of the Torah. Because the more you learn Torah, the more you realize that literally everything is in it. Every possible question, every answer, every issue you can possibly imagine is already in the Torah. All you got to do is follow what the Mishnah says, afuchba v'afuchba dekulaba. Delve into it and delve into it because everything is in it. And when somebody criticizes the Torah, that simply shows they never studied it. Now, by doing this deal, certainly we do not want 150 terrorists or even one terrorist to be in the streets. But this is certainly a deal that we can do because it could lead to Jewish people coming back home and living normal lives and doing tshuva and BeEzrat HaShem doing what the will of Hashem is. Now that they've endured this horrible suffering and they realize that it's miraculous that they were saved, hopefully they all do tshuva. But regardless of that, we have a responsibility to do whatever we can to get the prisoners home, if possible. Now, by the way, the side note with that hijacked plane, this whole negotiation was a lot of news coverage around it and so on. And ultimately, if you read up about it, you'll see that the Israeli army ended up actually attacking the terrorists in a very, very clever plan, and neutralized and destroyed the enemy and brought back all of the Jewish people home, Baruch Hashem, which actually is also part of the tshuva that Rav Ovadia writes about of how happy he is that this ended up being the ultimate solution because it created Kiddush Hashem, that that the Jewish people have a strong army, which again is something that apparently people don't realize that it is to the benefit of the Jewish people around the world that we have a good army. Even if you don't agree with the political stance, you don't agree with certainly with the antithetical to Torah ideology of Zionism, that does not mean that you should be against the army. For the Jewish people to have a strong army is actually certainly a good thing for us. It's a benefit to all of Am Yisrael. Hence the reason why to be grateful to the soldiers is very important. That does not mean that every soldier is going to go to heaven if he desecrates Shabbat his whole life and he completes his service in the army, he goes home and he becomes some type of professional, but he doesn't do tshuva. Just because he was a soldier doesn't mean he goes to heaven. While he's a soldier, we're very grateful. But if he dies as a soldier, there's a certain benefit to that spiritually, as that could wipe off many of his sins. But as far as once he's no longer a soldier, his sins are on him. It's not. There's no free ride. There's no free ride here. So a person needs to know, again, if you hear things that make going to heaven sound simple, that's because it's not true. It's not simple to go to heaven. It's not simple to be considered righteous. It's not simple. It requires work, just like anything else that's valuable in the world. Whether it's to become wealthy, have a happy marriage, be a good parent, a successful career, all of these things are difficult, but that's because the reward is ultimately great. So if somebody tells you, no, you could be the best parent in 5 minutes, you could be the biggest investor in the world in 10 minutes, you could be the richest man in the world in 10 minutes. Anybody that makes anything that's very valuable sound easy, that's because he's conning you. That's because he's lying to you. Nothing that's valuable is easy. Only thing that's easy is making mistakes. Making sins, making mistakes, that's easy. But good things, they require work. To go to heaven requires work. It's not so easy. It's not so easy, Rabotai. So, with that being said, we've addressed, Baruch Hashem, both of these big questions. I'll look to see if you have any relevant questions, and then we'll call tonight, Be'ezrat Hashem. Let's see. Yes, the website to donate to help us with the tzitziot and the other help that we're doing for the soldiers is bhchesed.org. bhchesed.org. You could donate over there, and you would be helping us help the soldiers, Baruch Hashem, and other people that we're helping right now, Baruch Hashem. Is it true that Ishmael and Esav did complete tshuva before they passed away? No, it's not true. Ishmael did tshuva, but Esav did not. Esav died as Rasha. That's why it says in the Torah, "Et Esav saneti." I hated it. Hashem hates Esav. Esav did not do tshuva. What does it mean for their descendants? Even if Ishmael did tshuva, it doesn't mean anything for his descendants, because descendants have their own free choice. If they choose to be righteous and follow the Torah, they'll be righteous. If they choose to be wicked, they'll be wicked. Same thing with the descendants of Esav. Just because Esav was wicked doesn't mean that a descendant of Esav should be wicked. He could be righteous. People still have a choice. What about if the terrorists were in jail for murder? Should we do exchange for these? As they should have been killed already per the Noahide law. You're right. If the Jewish law, according to the Torah, was the rule of the land right now, there pretty much wouldn't be any prisoners. There's no prisoners in Judaism. There's either slaves or there's death penalty. So there's no. According to the Torah, there's no prison. The only time there's prison is pretty much when he's waiting for the judgment to come. Either he's waiting for the Beit Din to make a decision, or he's waiting for a death penalty, or to get malkut, but then he's freed. So there's no prison according to the Torah. I heard that Lavan used black magic and his idol could talk. That's why Rachel took it, and so the idol wouldn't tell Lavan they were leaving. Yeah, you're right. That's why I said in last year or 2 years ago in a Shiur about the parasha that the two teraphim were statues that could speak. They used witchcraft. They would tell Lavan the future, and the way that he would get it is he would use witchcraft by murdering firstborn sons and using their skull. This is the reason why Esav, even though he knew that Yaakov went to Lavan's house, Esav, as much as he wanted to kill Yaakov, he didn't follow Yaakov, because he knew that his life would be in danger if he was next to Lavan. So Esav was scared even of Lavan. Esav's head was buried in one place and his body in another. Does that mean that he's done partial tshuva? No, it just means that his head knew a lot of Torah, because his father and his brother and his grandfather, Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, were all righteous and he knew a lot of Torah, but his body did not follow the Torah, so his body was left outside the Me'arat HaMachpelah. The way he died is the son of Yehuda chopped off his head. That we'll learn probably in a couple of weeks. Rabbi, is it true that there is an opinion that Islam is an idol-worshipping religion? If so, why? Very good question. Interestingly enough, I recently learned this, maybe about month or two ago that the Klausenberger Rebbe, he paskined that Islam is idol worship. Why? He says because even though they say that they are, they believe in Allah, they believe in God, the same God of Israel, they still look to murder us, and they still have heretical beliefs. So certainly, it's not the same God, and therefore he paskins that they are considered idol worshippers, which is contrary to what the Rambam paskins. So he actually has a very big chidush. The Divrei Sons, he paskins that Islam is considered idolatry. It's a big chidush. It's not a common. It's not common knowledge. Rabbi, old Torah is the same. I want Torah like yours. Sure, yeah. If you buy a Chumash, you can go to get yourself a Chumash that's will give you the 5 books of Moses. That's the written Torah. For that, you want to read a Torah that is not only in your language, which I'm assuming is English, but you want it to have some commentary so it explains the verses. You don't read the Torah like the Christians read it, where they read it and try to understand literally. The Torah is not a literal book. It's not understood as it's literally. The insights that you're hearing, whether it's the law, or the background stories, or the understanding within an understanding, all of that stuff comes from the commentary around the Torah. If you read the Torah as a storybook, like a Harry Potter, you'll never understand anything. So you have to get a Torah book that has commentary. Now, because there's so much commentary, you can't get all the commentary that's out there, because that will be literally millions of books. But to get some basic commentary on the 5 books of Moses, you can get what's called a Chumash, Chumash. Go to artscroll.com. Artscroll, ARTSCROLL.com. And they have the most famous Chumash in the world, because it's very well put together. It has some basic level of commentary on each of the verses, more or less, of the 5 books of Moses. They also have commentary on the other 19 books of the Tanakh. But I would not recommend for you to buy a Tanakh like this one, that's everything in one book, because that would have all 24 books, which includes the 5 books of Moses. And the reason I wouldn't recommend for you to get this, or even a bigger version of this, where it's in a single book, is because it has very little commentary. So, for example, I use it because it's easier for me to travel with it, and also because this is what I use for specific verses. But for commentary, I have other books for that. So if you want commentary on all 24 books, you have to get the editions that Artscroll has for each book, meaning each one of the sections of the Tanakh has a book of its own. Like the book of Jeremiah has one book, the book of Isaiah has one book, the book of Proverbs has one book, and so on and so forth, and has a lot of commentary. And I think the only one that combines multiple things is the 12 prophets. But aside from that, everything has its own book, so that way you'll have commentary. Start off with just the 5 books of Moses. Don't buy everything all at once, just simply because nobody could read everything all at once. And start off with that, and then go through that. It's artscroll.com. They have the best English translation that I'm familiar with. Certainly in other languages, there's other companies and so on, but in English, I believe that Artscroll has done a stellar job. I'm a very, very big advocate and fan of Artscroll's work. I think they're a gift to the generation, and no, they're not paying me a single dime for anything that I do. It's just simply, when something's good, you have to do whatever you can to let people know. Why do some people say that Chabad is heresy? That's because some parts of Chabad is heresy. That's why they say it, and I've spoken about it extensively. First of all, when it doesn't matter whether it's Chabad or it's anybody else, anybody that tells people that it's okay if they are not observing Torah and mitzvot, they're still going to go to heaven. That's heresy. If they say that there's no Gehenna, that there's no punishment, that's heresy. So there's a lot of things that the modern day Chabad is doing that are heretical. That doesn't mean that all Chabadniks are heretics, but it certainly is very common for them to keep people exactly where they are. Meaning, if the people are secular, when they meet them, you meet those people 10 years later, they'll still be secular more times than not. Now, this does not mean that Chabad doesn't do some good things. They certainly do some mitzvot and some good things, but as far as helping people do tshuva, that's certainly their weak point. They don't do much, and in fact, they speak against the Torah many times with some of the remarks that they made. That's simply a reality. It's not a new thing. It's something that's been going on for a long time. Many people have spoken against them in the past, but fewer and fewer are speaking against them because it creates a lot of headache, and they are very, very aggressive against their what they call mitnagdim. As they've been against us and anybody else that going against them. Where to get the books? All right, as I said, it's artscroll.com. Artscroll. ARTSCROLL.com. Artscroll.com. I'll just type it for you. And you are looking for Chumash. Okay, let's see. Is there anybody else here? Okay. There we go. Let's see. Some terrorists saying free Palestine. The good news is Palestine is free. It's called Israel. So in case you haven't heard me say it 1,000 times before, welcome. Let me see, what else? That's it. I think we've addressed all questions. Last question. Can I attend a synagogue even though I know many people drive there? It is Orthodox. If there is at least 10 people that are Torah observant and observe Shabbat, then you can pray there. But if there's not even 10 people there that are observant of Shabbat, then there's no reason of going to that synagogue. There's no reason to go to that synagogue. Okay, Rabotai, thank you very much for learning with me. May Hashem bless each and every single one of you that is supportive, that is receptive, that is looking to do the will of Hashem. And BeEzrat HaShem will continue learning together later this week. Kol tu b'chavatzlacha.